Hey, Hal, someone just called in and said that guy in Texas may be dead with they just announced it.
Yeah. Okay, they may have just announced it. No, it's just good. They're so self-important.
Well, and I've never, while I appreciate that they're constantly working to try to make better software, at some point say, okay, we're going to stick with this one for a while, and we're going to figure the bugs out before moving on to the next one.
Right.
Something that they.
Mm-hmm.
You need anything now? Need anything?
No, I'm great. Thank you. Sorry, Dennis, they were saying that somebody called in and said that guy might be dead. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So we may have a report. Is this true, Dennis, that this guy they know officially he may be dead?
Well, I know he called in. I don't want to confirm it here because
The dead guy?
No.
That would be.
I would question that immediately.
Somebody called.
I am the dead guy?
Yeah, right. I'm deceased. That's amazing. So this guy in Texas shoots up a police station, rams a police car, drives away in his armored van.
Yeah, it does say it online.
Deceased?
Yep.
Okay. So he's dead. After hours of negotiation and his insistence that he has got bombs in the vehicle. The reports I've seen is that he was shot by the sniper, but now they're officially dies after being shot by a police sniper. Okay. So they engaged this guy in negotiation in this van for a good long while because he had threats of bombs, I'm sure. Officers used the sniper rifle after an explosive breach of the armored van's windshield failed. So they tried to shoot a projectile through the windshield to try and either a flashbang or something.
So on the positive side, his van had bulletproof glass.
It was really well constructed.
Yeah.
For a zombie apocalypse, this is who you guys want to buy from.
He wasn't ripped off.
No. The suspect told the police negotiators that he had C4 explosives in the van. Brown told the AP, as a precaution, police used a camera-equipped robot to inspect the van and determine whether the suspect was dead or alive. Police outside headquarters, at least one of which contained a pipe bomb. A bomb squad robot attempted to move it, which means it had a mercury switch along those lines that was allowing it to, that just had to make it blow up. This guy was serious about it, and apparently is surprised that the police thought he was enough of a terrorist that they took custody of his son away. Here's a piece of advice for anybody who might be on the edge of this kind of circumstance where you're dealing with the, or family court or those. How in the complete opposite direction if used of some level of violent behavior, then make sure that no one accuse you of that type of behavior ever before. Like, agree for a ridiculous amount of time to supervised visits. Overcompensate, because the result in the end will be a lot better than...
That sounds expensive.
It's But if your idea of expense is only money, then yeah. If your idea of expense is liberty,
I have an algorithm.
okay, a return on investment, liberty versus cash.
Really, what a human life is worth.
Yeah, I don't doubt it, and I fear to see it. So the point I'm trying to make is this guy, they negotiated with him for a good long while. Meanwhile, a gentleman this week was driving, had a stroke, passed out at the wheel of his car, and smashed into a one of those wedge barriers that's kind of a divider between, an off-ramp on like kind of a regular street. The police who arrived on the scene tased him and pepper sprayed him in the face because he was non-responsive.
Is that a treatment for stroke that
no,
is like
that is not.
groundbreaking?
That's not something you'd find on the internet. That would go. You know
like
what? It's interesting. If you're having a stroke, find a cop and get them to pepper spray and tase you. And they walk. There's video of it.
Argument for tasing. I don't know.
That would be a heart attack. One would think it would be a last ditch effort for a heart attack. But he had a stroke, and they pepper sprayed him. Check this out. And there's video of it because all the body cam stuff has been released this week. I think it may have happened earlier in February. But he had a stroke. You can see he's not yelling at the police, making moves. He looks dead. He looks like he looks like a person who's having a stroke. He's not responding to their results. He's just been in an accident. He's bleeding from the impact and squirt him in the face, pepper spray, answering their calls to exit the car and provide them with ID. Now,
I want to laugh, but I'm horrified.
Wait, it gets worse.
What?
They open the door, they pepper spray him right in the face. If you're that close, you don't do that. You know what I mean? If you're that close to him. So he falls out of the car. When they tell him to move, he's starting to kind of come to. He tries to get out. He falls on the ground. For whatever reason, they decide to move the car out of traffic, don't clear him, and they run over his foot with his own car. Just had a stroke in traffic.
Is this guy inspiration in retrospect for the character in Naked Gun that O.J. Simpson played?
Yeah. If time slips are possible, yeah. But that's
every effort to try to help him just hurt him a little bit more.
Yeah, and the Mustafa character played by Will in the original Lost in Power. My to smell like almonds. I will try to stand. Ow! So
hello, Tiger.
Yeah. So they run over his foot with his own car. I don't know why they're putting it in neutral to roll it out of the way when they've got a guy on the ground who they pepper sprayed, tased, and is not making aggressive moves. He's not moving. This is an African-American gentleman. P.S. They negotiated with this guy up the police station for something on the order of $3. Now, granted, he had bombs in the car and he admitted it, so that's part of how negotiations happen. It's, mutual assured destruction being what it is. I guess that's what he was aiming for. Now,
who's harmless and incapacitated.
Yeah.
You just go ahead and bludgeon them.
Yes, right. And run with his own, but don't clear him. This is a man who's had a stroke. This is an American citizen, unarmed, making no aggressive moves, tasered and pepper sprayed, and then run over his own. Okay.
Crikey.
Then we cut to Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old with a toy gun, shot in less than 20 seconds by a police officer. By the way, who is now being indicted. But for public outcry, nothing. It was shot immediately. This guy got out of the car.
20 seconds is kind of generous, Hal.
Is it 12? Was it something like that? He jumped out of that car and shot that kid.
No, he didn't get out of the car, Hal.
Oh, he didn't? He shot him straight from the car?
He shot him from sitting in the car. He talked to him for 2 seconds and shot him in the head.
Okay. let's let that stay as egregious and as horrible as it is. And this is obviously a child. This guy didn't come across. He's not a really tall kid that you could mistake for a grown man. There was the caller even said the kid's got a toy gun. I think the 9/11.
That's been debunked. He really thought the person had a gun.
Okay, all right. So, guy in public, I think they've got a gun. This even makes the case about what I'm about to talk about even more stark in contrast.
Good.
So, cop thinks somebody in the park has a gun. They're waving at people. Rolls up. Yells twice, shoots from the car, shoots Tamir Rice in the head. Meanwhile, this is June 9th. Armed couple planned to shoot teachers and children at North Carolina school if it was God's will. 2 shockingly white human beings, heavily armed, were taken into custody on the campus of South Macon School in North Carolina, intending to shoot students and staff, saying it was God's will, according to authorities. In a press conference Friday, Sheriff Robert said the frightening scenario probably was averted by a school bus Bradley, which is the perfect name for a school bus driver, by the way. Totally. She sounds like that's exactly like what you're hired. I don't have a driver's license. It doesn't matter. Bradley sounds like a school bus driver's name. Yeah. Aspects were headed toward a bus while she was in her car. She'd gotten out of her bus. She got into her car to go home. Saw these two out walking towards the elementary school. She drove her car right at them. Driver said he had a gun at her, so she floored her car toward him, sending him running for cover. Citizen Times reports officers arrested Adam Conley, 38, and Catherine Jeter, 29, both of Franklin, on multiple charges. The sheriff said Conley pulled a gun on a responding deputy and had to be tased 3 times before officers could subdue him. In addition to a pistol in his hand, Conley was armed with 2 handguns and a holster. 3 guns on him. He had 2 guns. Jeter was also tased as she tried to grab a 4th handgun that was on the ground nearby. So this woman, go back to man has stroke in car, unarmed, can't respond, bleeding from the head, sight, no nothing, not talking, nothing. They taser and pepper spray him, then run over his foot with the car. Meanwhile, this woman had time to be tased and was reaching a gun while they were her to continue shooting cops. These 2 people are alive. They walked on the ground at a school with the intent to shoot children. They're alive. See where I'm heading with this? We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Aggressive Talk, live from Tom Hartman's beautifully soundproof studio. I'm playing the...
on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So welcome back to the show. To recap, juvenile kid in Park by police within seconds of arriving, dead. Two crazy white people with 5 guns, real ones, are still alive and were detained by police even after being tased multiple and still reaching for their guns. And now, the I was mentioning earlier, who tased and pepper sprayed for being black and not complying, I think works really well in comparison to the next case I'm going to tell you about, which is one of my favorite kind of political right now. Like, I enjoy a good tea partier on something, you know what I mean? Like tricorn hat and, or a old-fashioned...
Someone who's in it to win it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A lot of times, American flag vests. That's a big one. You know what I mean? Like
you got me. I'm
on board with them, right?
Yeah, looking for that.
So a lot of those kind of things. And
I just spell Merkin.
Y'all need. They're the kind of, especially the ones MU8. So a lot of those folks, those are the kind of folks that y'all sending around emails about the president and his family that are shockingly racist to anyone with half a brain, and their response is always, and it's funny. That's just fun. It's just funny. You know what I mean? It's just fun. We just thought it was funny. I ain't being racist. It's just funny. That's funny. 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 You're a state senator. So those folks, I'm a big fan of those guys because I think they're. I have a theory that they're actually a comedy troupe that Andy Kaufman started before his death.
That guy.
Yeah, because they're so ridiculous that there's got to be comedic in the back. Like it's like they're a giant onion sketch group. Okay, so next to them, my favorite is the sovereign citizen movement. Yeah, these guys are fun.
Oh, they're just a country unto themselves?
All of a sudden, totally has nothing to do with the black president situation. Mm-mm. The laws of government do not pertain. They don't for court if they've got a summons. They don't have to obey, commerce laws. They can sell sawed-off shotguns on the internet if they want to minors with a free bag of roofies thrown in, and they can do anything because no rule applies to them. They can start on a playground and anything they want. It's just rules do not apply to the sovereign citizens. They got their own government. There's like a secondary in Texas. There's like they've got a government for themselves, right? They're like the secessionists who, because they can't take the state with them, they'll do it in heart, if not in material form. So there, a couple of these guys have been, pulled over, kill people, and this guy, there's a guy who got pulled over that I perfect contrast to the gentleman having the stroke. The man who had just had a stroke, had a car crash. Said he'd been sick for a week, was saying that to the police when they were tasing him and spraying him in the face, and ran over his foot with his own car, broke his ankle. That guy didn't talk back to cops, didn't say anything at all. Clearly out of it. Man who was just in accident. Protect and serve, I think.
Which is his Native American name, by the way.
Man who was just in accident?
Uh-huh.
Right. Watch it. That's right. I know. Well, somebody's got to, and it's probably going to be just you. So
I'm fine with it.
So one of these sovereign citizen dudes, a 49-year-old Scott Richardson, a self-described sovereign citizen, posted a video of his May arrest in Addison, Texas.
Oh, how'd that go? Was it a good one?
It's pretty funny. It has a lot of him going, okay, let me ask you a question, officer. Okay.
Oh, he's one of those.
Yeah, he's one of those.
Devil's advocate suspects.
Okay, let me ask you a question. My favorite questions he asked was, as a man, what right do you have to man?
Oh,
Yeah. And the officer said he's speeding, which is in violation of the law, and being an officer gives him the authority. Richardson claims that speeding is not illegal. He says, I'm speeding. Do you realize that in the state of Texas, speeding in and of itself is not illegal?
Oh.
Which is not, the Texas Transportation Code actually limits, so it allows the speed limit. So, I mean, the guy's bananas anyways. Yeah. The point is, he goes on like this for 4 minutes, back and forth, won't roll down his window. He was going 50 in a 40-mile-an-hour zone. That's over. The officer requests the man to show him his driver's license and proof of insurance a total of 15 times.
Wow.
Before he the officer pulls out his baton and smashes the guy's window. Now, the guy has not given ID. He has been non-responsive to the request by the police officer. He's been
not due to stroke.
Yeah, he's not is any kind of medical emergency. Talking back to the cop and fails to identify himself.
You may not know me.
You recognize me? I'm a star of a cable access show. We do sovereign citizen broadcasts every. We call it Radio Free Addison. You might not watch it because you're a pig and cop, and you're just a man blue outfit to me. So I'm still okay. I'm still gonna have to ask you a question here. Richardson says that's not how this works. The officer is how this works. Richard, 15 times the officer is shouting at the man, "Identify yourself and exit the vehicle." He says he warns him. He will break the window. Breaks the window, drawing his baton, raising it. Richardson keeps babbling into his phone. The window's broken open. The officer opens the door. The phone falls to the floor. You can hear the officer telling the man to stay down, then applying handcuffs and telling him he is being charged with failure. After a few more minutes, the officer is conversing with another policeman, this part is great, explaining that the matter was just a simple traffic stop. All he had to do was give me his driver's license. He was giving me Republic of Texas crap, saying I'd stopped him illegally, right to detain him. And the other officer goes, "This was for speeding?" And the officer goes, "Yeah, it was." A little later, the cop says, wait, where is it? Here is it. A little later, he muses, "I should have known when I saw the back window, all that stickers and all that stuff." But here's the thing. You have an African-American man bleeding from the head, car accident, who's not getting out of his vehicle, who suffered head injury. Whether you know he's had a stroke or not, he's not responding from police. There's no other report that a man is driving, people. There's a lot of reasons cars can drive erratically. Drunk is one. That's a or shooting offense in those regards. But here's a guy who's got a head injury who's not responding. They tase him, pepper spray him in the face, and then run over his foot. This guy is talking back to the cop, does not recognize his authority, his ID, could be anybody, could have a trunk load of guns on his way to a meeting where the guy who did the Dallas shooting.
Yeah.
The cop can't know. This is where police, I have total sympathy for cops in this circumstance. And this cop acted correctly, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying that this cop would have acted differently had the person been black. I'm saying these other cops might have acted differently if it was a white person. But this guy clearly was just doing, he hated just not, it was a regular traffic stop. He's just trying to do his case, is putting this cop...
He's dragging him around the dance floor,
right,
so he can post it to YouTube later.
Exactly. Exactly. And this guy is charged and is alive. And assaulted in any way.
I would like...
Yeah. 773-763-9278 is our number. Let's take some calls, because I think we have some. Let's take a break, actually. We're right at quarter hour. So let me take a break, and then as soon as CPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Worldwide, 773-63-9278.
So breaking news, Dallas PD is see if suspect is dead. A robot is approaching the suspect for fear of explosion. So reports are back and forth.
Are you okay?
Yes, right. There is alive. Don't send him.
On a scale of
Wally. That, I don't want to anthropomorphize too much on that, but
you saw Big Hero 6.
I did.
I loved it.
I was a fan. It was cute. I thought
Cute.
they went.
I loved it.
All right. I preferred Wally.
Haven't seen it yet, so I can't make that
Okay,
comparison.
I think you'll see where I'm going. Who do we got?
Steve in the Gold Coast.
Excellent. Hey, Steve, welcome to the show.
Yes, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I do think that to some extent, we need to compare, apples to apples, because it becomes very difficult given that we don't have one universal police force from California to New York. So in other words, it's very different, in terms of training, what might take New York City versus Dallas versus somewhere in Peoria, Illinois. And the standards are different, the recruiting is different, all sorts of things are different. So when we talk about policing, let's not paint with too broad a brush.
I'm painting. I will admit, Steve, that I'm painting with a very broad brush because I'm using what I would call baseline training procedures, not some extraordinary rendition aspect of whether or not you use a sniper because your SWAT team has one, whether you call out like snipers for something or not. I'm talking about personal exchange. Traffic. Here's the thing about state-to-state traffic stops. I don't have to be from that state to be by a cop. So a level of expectation of standard should be there.
And that's why, and that goes to my second point, which is, again, the question is, what happened in each specific instance?
Body cameras on these circumstances.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why I'm bringing them up and specifically comparing them in this circumstance.
Right. And what I'm saying is that we cannot compare, say, for instance, Make the Leap simply because there was a body cam and there's video. And therefore, we can't look at all the instances where there isn't any video in order to actually.
I'm comparing most. The only situation I'm not I'm talking about specifically today where there's cam video is the armed couple on the grounds with 5 guns who fired on authorities, wrestled with authorities. And the woman continued to reach for a gun while being
like arm wrestle.
Right, exactly, and this goes to the point I want. This is my hypothesis with regard to police, that in the end, no matter what kind of training they receive, no matter what kind of experience that they have, that they operate in much the same way that the rest of us do. When you look at the studies of
not good enough.
Just let me make my point here.
Okay.
When you look at various studies in terms of mob mentality, what it is that makes people function in a way that's outside of their character versus within of a group mentality, and this explains why college kids, which tend to be the elites of our society, can be seen rioting after a sports event, completely out of character for kids who are supposed to be the creme de la creme of American society. And we're engaged in that behavior, yet when it comes to active work of a mob, that they tend to do so in some cases. Now, I would argue also succumb to this sort of thing that once one or two or more of them allow their emotions to get the better of them, that this mob mentality sets in, and then all of a sudden you get, Carl was, pelted with 150, and I think that opposed to that happening, if someone...
No, I get it. I understand. Like, mob mentality doesn't explain the police behavior. A culture of fear within certain police departments that they to shake, but that's the ability of both the police sergeant and the upper government to make sure that people get treatment or awareness of that. But the idea that some circumstances, I do think this kind of contrast, it's important to draw. It's important to look at this because all of this stuff has been going on, and that baseline excuse is, well, cops have it rough, has been understood byline that has allowed it to squeak by. And I think it's important.
And that's the last point that I wanted to make, because that's the important one. That, with all due respect to police, and again, I realize that they have a difficult job. It is not among the most dangerous jobs in this country. That's point one. Two, crime is down. Mm-hmm. So it was much more dangerous to be a police officer in 1980 than it is today. Said that, I will also say this, that if you are a police officer, with all due respect, you signed up for that job.
Right.
You know something of the danger of that job. If it is too stressful, such that you cannot yourself from going out of control just because, someone has defied your authority. And again, I would argue that this is, to some extent, this is something that's been looked at by social scientists, that have a need to express their authority over others, and that's
why you seek that job out. That's why,
right.
exactly.
Yeah. It tends to a certain kind of person to that kind of job. It also tends to be a culture, because police are by other police who are senior to them when they come into this job. You've got to control them out there. If they perceive you as being weak, you will not be able to do your job. And in those tough neighborhoods, they will know that they can get away with it.
The problem is if version of what strength is, which is armed reaction to something, then you're not policing military force on the street. Right.
And this is why in inner city communities, they're just another gang, because they act like other gangs.
Right, which is why when you have, like the suspect in Baltimore who was shot, and they're going, well, he ran when the cops showed up. The cops had a history of shooting with impunity in the area, and if you got killed by them, no one was going to check on whether or not you deserve it. So everybody scatters when they show up, because they are just another gang in that regard.
And this is the last point I wanted to make, and it's an unfortunate one, because we're creating a cycle now. So that on the one hand, you have police who are engaging in what I would call misconduct, which of course creates fear in communities, in certain communities more so. There's a mentality in those communities where persons who are stopped by police or confronted by police are perhaps more likely.
In theory, but I think the movement is going in the direction of, is in a gentrifying cycle where there are always going to be those that can be agent provocateurs that can go and help prove the point. But the reality is most of the protests and what's going on, the people, the guy who allegedly shot at police during the Ferguson riots was actually shooting at someone else. That became the story for a while, that, okay, now it's risen to this violent thing where the protesters are shooting at cops. And it wasn't the case at all. It was the vast majority of those people.
To the day-to-day stops,
No, yeah, I get it, but I'm saying that's the difference between being a cop and a soldier. And if you want to just go shoot anybody that's not in your outfit, be a soldier.
Right, and that interjects, of course, the other point, which is a completely wanted to have it, which is the militarization of police.
Right, which I think the president's move to limit is a great idea. We'll see if it actually can make it through the process of congressional funding. Serious doubts about it.
And we also need to recognize that we sort of the law of unanticipated consequences. We've made it in America that when law enforcement positions become available, that we want to give personnel first shots at those. And that does have certain consequences, because
especially, yeah, I agree. And we're right up against the bottom of the hour. Excellent points all around, but I do have a very distinct, there's a part I slide off and I go, the reason why we respect police officers, the basis of that respect is that they put their life on the line, and that's the root of where it is. If at a point they are no longer putting their life on the line and simply going, if I'm in any kind of dangerous situation, I will do everything in my power to put you down, without knowing the full extent of it, being effectively judge and jury in that. They're no longer police officers. We're being militarily patrolled, and that's the country we have. So it's important that cops like that be dealt with, so that all the great cops doing a great job aren't put in more danger specifically for that, or aren't ultimately don't lose the respect of the job, where people are like, well, you're just a cop because you kind of wish you could boss people around, which is the argument kind of being made. It's a tough one. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Katie Speak is going to be joining us to talk about what's the other part of going on in Texas. Apparently, according to Drudge Report, Romney is teasing it running again because the clown car isn't silly enough. Throwing that in the mix since Hillary just came up. There you go. We'll be back right after this with more of your calls too. 763-927 radio program Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. You can follow me at Hal and hashtag HSRPM for the conversation.
had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so tried.
Streaming at HalSparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Joining us now in the conversation, so much wonderful Texas flavor in this. I thought we'd kind of double down on, because I think Texas in many ways. Any time in Texas, Johnny?
I knew it.
He left for a minute. Now he's back.
I have been to Texas.
Okay, yeah.
I have been to Texas.
You tried to take a
Sorry.
longer break than your morning constitutional. Don't take it during the show. I've told you.
I do a routine where I have to do a certain number of toe touches, and and then I expel whatever comes out after that.
As long as you actually go to the bathroom, to do it, as opposed to it just on the 9th toe touch.
On the 9th toe touch, I've got to be in position.
Yeah, right. Otherwise, it's a real. I apologize to everyone at WCPT, especially Dennis. So
yeah, thank you.
That being said, you've been.
I've been to San Antonio in July, which I do not recommend.
Yeah, it's a rough one. My beloved Summer is in Texas right now on a family. It is hot there right now. I've done all through the state: Dallas, Houston, Arlington, Improv. I'm a big fan of those places. Been there for South by Southwest. Done stand up there. Played music. And I don't really tend to run into the crazy part of Texas, and it might be the fact that the neighborhoods I'm in when I'm in Arlington, or the audiences that I have coming to my show, are the people who are thirsty for some sort of liberal, pro-LGBT, non.
I don't even know about liberal progressive. I mean, you pepper that stuff into your stand-up, but that's not like our show is coming to change your mind about anything.
No, well, I am. I just do it very subtly. Yeah. I don't do it overt because I don't think it helps. Quite frankly, you're there to laugh. It doesn't help if I'm bludgeoning you. Like I would rather have laughter than. I tend to think that political comedy shows most of the time get a lot of clapping as opposed to laughter, which I appreciate that you like what I'm saying, but that's not what we're here for. It's a comedy club. Let's laugh. So that's how I run my show. But in it, I obviously inform it with my values, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a safe, even if I'm not there directly promoting marriage or income equality, you understand that's what's going on. The perspective from which I come. And Katie Speak is joining us right now and thank you for showing up on the show to deal with this aspect of, let's just say, the part of Texas to my shows, along with the sovereign citizen movement and the secessionist pederasty wing of evangelical Christianity. They don't show up, nor do the He-Man Woman Haters Club alfalfa style men in the Texas legislature and in the sort of class of the moneyed Texas that seem to think that there's something to be feared in a woman making a choice. It boggles the mind. Katie.
Hi. So I I mean, that faction that you're describing, I hate to tell you, Hal, they're in every state of the country.
Oh, no question. But
so this is not something that's like systemic. I'm not here to Texas shame or South shame or middle of the country flyover shame last year. And I'll tell you that the work that these activists are doing in the red states is the harder work.
Sure.
They're actually doing the work of culture change that's gonna be what helps the entire country in the long run.
Right.
And the reason that this is happening, and the whole reason that this decision that we're talking about.
By the way, catch everybody up on exactly what happened in Texas, so everybody's on board.
Sure, it goes all the way back to the that Wendy that was actually completed by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the state capitol 2 years ago, screaming at the top of their lungs so loud to filibuster that the Republicans could not get the vote time by the deadline at the end of the legislature. So Wendy Davis made it famous, but people who had filled the Capitol scream, the people's filibuster, that kept that law from passing. So this is still going on from that. So if everyone remembers the pink shirts, all that stuff, and the orange shirts, this is the same law we're still talking about. That's how long the court system takes.
Right.
And it's actually the court system that makes this important. We don't have an affirmative in this country. Roe doesn't give us that. It said that you have a right to privacy, which made it hard to limit access to abortion, but we don't have an affirmative right. In fact, it's presiding law anymore. Casey is presiding law, and it's based on whether or not a patient's access to abortion, like too much undue burden, like that's the legalistic phrase now. And so what's going on in Texas is they're trying to decide if we had 40 clinics in Texas 2 years ago. We cut that in half. Mm-hmm. Then HB2, this great big omnibus law that had all the stuff we always talk about, the admitting privilege, the ambulatory surgical center, which is like number of closets, and they turn a clinic that can be welcoming, sort of friendly, mm-hmm. For like a 2-minute procedure literally into a surgical center, which is terrifying for no reason for patients, under the guise of safety that's not necessary. So this law has everything in it. The current provision that was in front of the Fifth Circuit, which is the thing that everyone should be hating right now, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals covers Mississippi. That clinic threatened to be closed. It's the same court that oversees that. Well, the Fifth Circuit said if you try to close the clinic in Mississippi, there'll be no clinic in Mississippi, and that's an undue burden. Well, they're very political and ideologically motivated in the Fifth Circuit, so they are literally creating their own conflicts. They ruled one way with certain language in Mississippi, and they've gone out of their way to rule differently with different language for Texas. So said on Tuesday is that 500-mile drive, no problem. You got a bordering state, right? You can drive 7, 8, 9 hours. Goes right around the corners. For some of you folks, you can just hop on across the border. And so the decision to reinstate the ambulatory surgical center provisions will close all but either 8 or 9 clinics in Texas. There's a new Planned Parenthood in San Antonio that may hold up to the law, so we're not sure. But what it means is clinics in the South, no clinics in West Texas. There's a whole women's health in the Rio Grande Valley that may be able to stay open, but they don't have a doctor to perform. They don't have a doctor with admitting privileges. So another part of this law may keep that clinic shut down, even though this decision leaves it open.
Right, and real quick, understand that the religious freedom laws and the religious exemption laws are largely in place as another end run. They have several value things that they're using to get around equality on. As far as LGBT rights, discriminating against, and all kinds of that they also, it's kind of like an extra win. But in the abortion fight, this allows doctors, administrators, especially of religious schools or religious hospitals or religiously affiliated hospitals, to not, while they can't not treat someone who's been harmed, they can deny admitting privileges based on their belief systems under these laws. That's one of the things they're shooting for.
That's going on in the Rio Grande Valley. So there's a whole women's health there that may be able to stay open, but they have trouble having to provide the service because
and that's not an accident.
Right. The admitting privileges laws require you to have admitting privileges distance, and the only hospital that can grant that in the valley has talking about that kind of problem going on their hospital administration. So they have trouble qualifying to do something that they do every. I
wonder if let's take a break. When we come, we're going to talk about what can be done and what is being done, because it's so murky the other way on several small losses, and then end up realizing the whole thing is gone. And that's the concern, is Texas becomes a model for how other states will try to do this. So can you stick with us through the break? I'm assuming yes. Is she still with us?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so back right after this. And Johnny Million and myself and Dennis, and taking your calls 773-763-9278. And of course, we'll end the hour with a happy ending. We'll be back.
Now back to the Hal Sparks Radio program worldwide, 773-763-9278.
So we're talking to Katie Speak, the example that Texas is setting. I'm not saying as the only problem any stretch, and I'm certainly not saying that there aren't people within the state of Texas who are really reestablish, fix, and protect equal rights for women on a bunch of fronts, because it's a multi-assault that's happening. I actually believe that, first of all, I think Hillary Clinton's going to win the presidency. That's my prediction. I also think that she will do for sexism what this president has done for racism, which is transformative about it, but not in a kumbaya kind of a way. Bring the wound to the surface so that we're aware of how sick we are. And, native bone through the nose kind of email around by state officials about the Obama family, there will be the female equivalent of those sent around about the Hillary presidency.
Yeah, I'm already kind of not looking forward to it. I mean, I am and I'm not, right? I mean, we kind of talked about that before, but it's already happening today. So they're gearing up. And part of what's important about what you said in the national picture for in Texas is this is the movement has a long-term plan, and the reason that they picked Texas as the place to push these laws, ALEC, right? Everyone knows about ALEC, but there's also Americans United for Life, which is like the specific pro-life version of ALEC. So they're national, they're well-funded, they make all that model legislation. Well, they push it specifically. We have a certain number of circuit courts of appeals in the country, right? And the more there are liberal courts and conservative courts and ideal courts. Just Supreme Court. Everyone knows, like, we have certain distaste for people like Scalia, who clearly has an agenda.
Right.
Well, think of the Fifth Circuit Court as the of circuit courts, right? Like, they have an agenda. So the reason that they pushed the admitting privileges and ambulatory surgical center laws in Mississippi and Texas is they knew that this was going to happen. Right. They knew that when it made its way through the courts, not only would clinics close in the meantime, clinics without the money to fight it and people be harmed in the meantime, place where the Fifth Circuit Court would uphold it. And then in places like Wisconsin that have a more well put together, law-driven, precedent caring about circuit court, the surgical center law has been struck down. And the conflict in the circuit courts is what sends it to the Supreme Court. So they're setting up a thing where our Supreme Court, which is led by someone who's pretty politically driven, he likes to wade into the waters of hot topics, is now in the position of taking up this law. And that's what they do. They're trying to chip away at abortion rights until they can overturn them altogether. If this can go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court can even have language that further, what an undue, to restrict how far along in a pregnancy you can be, how big that can create for women to have what's happening to them. That's the goal. It's not that Texas legislators would be open to. There's lots of states where that's the case. I mean, if you want to pass some stuff, go to Kansas. But they knew specifically that this circuit court would create this issue, and it has. And it's maybe going to go on for another year. There'll either be an emergency injunction to keep the law from going into effect in 19 days, or there won't. And it's possible to hear it, but it's Supreme Court decision season. We could be talking about this a year from now. Right. So they're trying to drag it out as much as possible. Our intro really important. We'll be getting the decision in the middle of a presidential election.
Exactly, for the first
with a woman,
legit candidate in history. Right.
Which I will now break my arm patting myself on the back. I said was exactly what would happen when this law passed 2 years ago. Yeah.
And I honestly do believe that the wound of sexism that we carry around as a country be brought to the fore both during her candidacy and her presidency. And there's it's important that it does, so that things can be transformative and healing whether they like it or not. And one of the interesting things is that in an attempt to drive the Republican Party in evangelical direction, the splintering of it by libertarians and to some degree certain members of the Tea Party movement who do view themselves as sovereign, for example, aren't in line with aren't automatically in step with the anti-abortion movement. Right. Especially if you're the odd part about Rand Paul and his ilk is that they are somehow pro everything but letting teens use heroin, close to that, but they're against because society. That's so, and the society of it doesn't seem to follow for abortion restrictions as far as they're concerned. They can be pro-life, but they're not really fighting hard for it. And I think that's indicative of a larger swath of a group of people that's growing within the Republican Party. Or it's not really a party. It's a pie of very.
Rand Paul's pro personhood. Let's not parse it. Rand Paul is as extreme of an anti-abortionist and anti-contraceptionist and as you can
Which
be.
doesn't seem to fit in with the concept of libertarianism at all.
Right, it's weird.
Yeah.
In fact, I do regularly. You've done their show.
Yep.
The show's changing up, but I do Dangerous Conversation with Scott Ledger. You've been on with. They have a really large libertarian base. He's based in Florida. It's mostly like picture their audience. If the Man Show audience cared about politics, like that's who they would be.
Sure.
And I've been doing his show almost as long as I've been doing yours. And what's really interesting is like they didn't know like why they would care about my quote unquote my issue. I was like, listen, they're wasting all of like your money, your tax dollars, like legislating on this stuff, and their audience feels about this the way if libertarians were consistent, they would feel about this.
Right.
You know, anytime that I've talked about like having trouble getting trans to go escorted a clinic to protect patients and stuff, like inevitably it is one of his listeners that hits my donate button, like to make sure that I can get there to do that because they really feel like in and personal freedom, but that group is not the faction in the Republican Party. They're this weird. They're pandering to those people, but they're not actually like they don't care. They're not consistent at all. It's really weird. The cognitive dissonance that must exist in their heads explode.
Right. I don't think they line up. I think. I think when you pin these folks down in a conversation, they fall apart and then just backpedal into think I should be able to do what I want. People can do whatever they want. And that's which is, I have no problem if you're of bootstrapping for your own personal self, but over another person just in a generic format, Ayn Rand style, is ridiculous. I can read all the Tony Robbins I want and say I will never rely on the kindness of strangers and make a vow of myself to always have insurance and that like, but that's my sense of responsibility and character that makes me do that. But I'm not going to go, therefore, if you don't meet my standard, you are a bad person and not worthy of America's, best response.
I really enjoy the worship of Ayn Rand actually by people like Scott Walker and and the Pauls, because she was really like she was an atheist. She was very like,
she thought Christians were, and this was her word, retarded. She used the term of the time that they were anybody was mentally retarded, and so the idea that she became a voice of the right is amazing.
Yeah, if you pinned her down on how far into a pregnancy she thought you could terminate, she'd pretty much be like, well, have you delivered? Like, I mean, that would literally be like, at that point, she's just really, John Oliver did a good roundup of old, like they gathered all the audio they could get a hold of and did a, why is she still a thing? Because she's not who she is as much who they think she is as Jesus is who they think he is.
Right, exactly. It's pick and choose. You're taking the little bits that work for you and building that you need to use. It's why we call ourselves a Judeo-Christian when we're arguing politics. We get to pick liberally, and I use that term in the original sense, from either the Old Testament, depending on whether we want to be gregarious and open and loving, or seen as neighborly, or violent and vitriolic and kind of judgmental. The idea eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth can be said equally by the same turn the other cheek. And they just kind of use it back and forth, which with ever not realizing true conflict theology in that. That's a conversation we can get into super deep. We're up against the break, but I want to say follow Katie Speak _speak on Twitter. And Katie, could you tweet the links for the organizations in Texas that are working for this, because I want to retweet those to everybody, and if just put on the hashtag HSRPM, that would be great, and that way we'll be able to get to if anybody feels like spending some time in Texas doing some work or giving their support in another way, they can do that.
Absolutely. Fun Texas Choice is the big one, and I'll send all those to you.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us and talking. We'll be back with your calls, 773-763-9278, right after this. It's
Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Okay, so as an update, which seems really funny, Danielle pointed out that...
Are you doing live news updates, Hal?
Because, I've got all this stuff available to me. I might as well take advantage of it. We've got a monitor up with the news happening on it and all kinds of stuff. MSNBC has still been running the Chiron police checking to see if suspect in Texas shootout is... Meanwhile, they blew up the van with him in it a little bit ago. So, out on a limb and say he didn't make it.
I don't know. There's a chance.
Thank you, Dumb and Dumber. There's pictures of them having blown up the van, and presumably he's still in it. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah,
what he did, really, if you think
Danielle
about it,
and I are betting that
bad.
he's deed. He's gone. Do we have callers? Shall we take some callers? Do we have time?
I think we got some callers.
Yeah. We got Ike in South Carolina.
Yay!
Hey, Ike, how are you?
Well, I'm pissed. How
Okay.
are you?
Well, if you heard the first hour, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, look. Okay, Hillary, whatever, fine.
Okay.
I'm a Bernie Sanders man.
Sure.
I'm sick and tired of this economic injustice and these dirty backroom deals, whether it's a TTP, TPA, TISA, whatever the hell they're doing.
TAA, TPP, and TPA. Yep.
Right. And you know what? Before I agree to any fast track or any other agreement, go back and fix this open. I want you to go back and take care of CAFTA and NAFTA too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the TPP allegedly was working in that direction to fix the open trade thing with China. That would change under the Pacific Partnership because it would also change our relationship with the other countries. But no details. That's true, though.
Listen,
yeah.
If they're going to back it up and they're for it.
Oh, if Paul Ryan's for it, that's why. I think that
wrong.
if there was a single reason why it went down on the floor, besides people being gun shy from NAFTA and GATT, it was the fact that Paul Ryan was so for it. That in and of itself.
Wrong. Republicans come out for it, there's something wrong.
Yep.
And, I'm a hard-working man. I'm out here in 100-degree heat on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to work tomorrow, too. All right? I get paid cash under the table. I got no benefits. I got no health insurance. I got no teeth, hardly. Okay?
You paint a beautiful picture, Ike.
I bust my ass out here in the South.
Yeah.
All right? Organize these people, get them to understand that, you know what, you need a union. And then my state turns around. They're like eighth from the bottom of the poorest goddamn states in the country. Turn around and they go and they give Volvo $238 million. We $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, our roads suck. The teens are driving and dying at an amazing rate. Our infrastructure sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a Republican Shangri-La.
Well, yeah, because they don't understand this. Understand, Ike, and I totally understand. It's not they look at it as a very rich state, and I'll tell you why. Because they live there, but they the Caymans, and so state because it's rich in resources and rich in workers who are easy to exploit.
Exactly, and you know what? The third cheap labor is as old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you could have slaves. By God, that day. Oh, and by the way, I do have Rand on my phone. Other pictures I have of her in quotes of her talking crap.
Mm-hmm.
Standing in the Oval Office was Jerry Ford and Alan Greenspan when he was sworn in as the Treasury chief.
That's right, because they were lovers or something.
The Fed chief, and he's the one that sat there and said, "Oh, she's my inspiring light and everything." And I from him after everything crashed, he said, "Well, I didn't think they'd do that."
Oh yeah. Coming.
He's the guy. Alan Greenspan was that Ayn Randian crap.
You're incompetent, right? That's the.
He was the one. And that's why we crashed. He went along with Reagan and garbage, that trickle down crap. And look, this is what I'm trying to tell you, Hal.
Yep.
And I've tried to tell you before.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of us out here, and you know what? Hillary better stand up. She up, and she better stand up tall, just like Elizabeth
Sanders. If she wants a nomination, she better goddamn stand up quick, because I'm not taking none of this Monsanto, whatever the hell she's into. I'm not buying it. You buy God.
Last week, just so you know,
the most important thing to me, the workers out here. I'm trying to tell you, I'm losing my teeth. I'm losing my health. I'm losing. I don't have anything out here, and by God, I want a champion. And right now, it looks like Bernie.
I agree. There is a great champion in Bernie Sanders. Hillary, on the other hand, has surprised everybody by coming out farther to the left than anybody expected, especially on workers' rights. She was accused by the right-wing media this week of saying that the only way we can have economic equality in this country is if we, quote, topple the 1%. And instead of tap dancing away from it, they basically said, I don't think that was the actual quote, because that's not the kind of words she uses, but that's not far off from what we're talking about. She was direct. She went for two right out of the gate. And
I worked on both of their campaigns. I love Bill. I love Hillary. But I got to tell you something, man. Time's getting short out here for us working folk. And we're just about fed up to the point that, you know what? I don't give a damn. You want to live behind your gated community? You want to spout your Republican crap? You think you got that many guns and whatever the hell you think you got? I don't give a damn where you live. Texas, you're at. You know what? You think you can come after us? I got news for you. I'm armed. I'm a Democrat. I don't give a damn.
At this point, we got
a war. If you want a war, because better get up off your bank pile and stop stocking up a bunch of money to leave your kids that you can't take with you anyway, and you will never get through the eye of the needle, and you'll never see Jesus. Whatever the hell you believe in, you know what? We're sick of you people. You better get off of it, because I swear to God, we're going to hurt you.
I think you need to. Well, first of all, not advocating any kind of violent revolt by any stretch, Ike, but I will say this.
They talk this all the time. They talk the same thing.
It's not an excuse to do it. It's never an excuse to do it. I get what you're saying. Go there with you. Work that way.
But I'm saying this is a staple. Then when they get it from somebody on the left and they get in a bar fight or ass whipped, then all of a sudden it's like,
no,
he was wrong.
It was just the point I was making earlier. Ultimately, the only real effective change is overwhelming pressure in a nonviolent sense. It's ever worked. It's an excuse.
That's cool, but
it's just an excuse to let them come down on you, and especially in a state where you work. If you're saying that stuff and you're trying to unionize, no wonder you can't be taken serious. You have to err the other direction, Ike. You have to.
My message to my fellow Democrats: you got to stand up and bow up, because by God, they're doing it to you every day.
I agree, but there's a stronger way to do it. There's a strong.
They're right. No, you got to stand up to them.
I understand. I appreciate the call. I'm not like that.
Peace.
That version.
Peace, man.
I get it, but you have to be.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me vent.
Of course, man. I understand your frustration, but I also know that the long path is the hard one, but it's the one that lasts, and it's the thing that's frustrating the right the most. Is that all these short-term gains that they seem to make always get swamped. The truth is, the arc of social justice is in the direction of positive change. As bad as we get these setbacks, these moments like we are in history right now, where we have the Tamir Rice moments, and we have moments in Baltimore, is a realization that we're not as healed as we think we are, but it's not going to stop. That's the direction humanity is, those people like it or not. So that's the important thing. Let's see, do we have time enough for one more call? Yeah, let's grab another caller. Do we have one?
I think Dennis is screening one.
Okay, well, then we're good. We've got a decent. By the way, that picture of Ayn Rand is readily available if you want to Google it. It's just type in Gerald Ford Ayn Rand, Alan Greenspan Ayn Rand, and just click on images. You're going to want to have safe pictures of this, but I will say that judging from the sex Atlas Shrugged, they're a little Duggar for me.
Little Duggar.
Yeah, they're a little Duggar for me.
Look at you little Duggar.
Yeah, you little Duggar. By the way, this kind of, we talked about this a good deal last week, but the weird, did you hear about Huckabee's he came out with, and for lack of a better phrase, a full-throated support of the Duggar family, and Josh in particular.
Yeah, oops. That was awesome.
Yeah.
He couldn't have been more wrong.
Well, turns out who wrote Huckabee's autobiography, a guy named John Perry, filed for divorce, and one of the main reasons she filed for it was allegations, which he did not deny, of child sexual abuse. He just simply said there's been no testimony offered. He did not deny it.
Crikey.
He didn't say there's no testimony offered because he knows testimony could be forthcoming, more than likely. Huckabee also, and this seems to be his big constituency. Apparently, he wrote a letter to a rapist who he later pardoned, who got out and raped Horton him too much. In reference to the Dukakis ads that ran back in the 80s. But in reality, this Huckabee seems to have he seems to be totally in line with this quiverful idea that men run stuff, women just have to take it. And that will not, cannot be a part of a country like America. We are a nation of equality. We are a nation of everyone is allowed to make as much, have equality, not just a chosen few. And this founding fathers nonsense you hear from Huckabee, what he means by that is we need to go back to a time when only white male landowners had the vote, women couldn't vote, minorities couldn't vote, minorities and whites couldn't get married, interracial marriage was illegal, and slavery the law of the land. Because I have a thing from him that would make me think otherwise. We'll be back right after this with the happy ending. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago. Time. Were we screening a caller? Did we want to take them real quick before we get into this?
No, we decided we hate them.
Understood.
No, we did not decide that.
Oh.
I did.
Are they there, or did John decide something like that?
No, they just wanted to make a comment when about Ike calling.
Oh, God. Please don't. It's not that kind of thing?
Whatever.
Something along
In
those
that
lines?
realm, yeah, in that realm.
In that zone, yeah. Okay, I've got a couple of happy endings today, so it's nice that we have the time to do it. One's kind of a funny one that is political, and normally I like ones that don't even have or a told you so to them. Mm-hmm. But Scott Walker was busted lying again this week. Did you see this? When he lied about touching Bible, and that turned
the big story he told.
Yeah. Okay. Turned out to be complete crap. And the story that his lies seem to center around what tell him like he's best buddies with them. Like he makes up like
really sad.
Like with Johnny Million and I were sitting there and he was like leaned over and confided to me stuff. It had that, he told me that I was the kind of guy he thought should be president. Like, and you're like, not only did I meet him, but I said pass the butter. That was pretty much it. I don't know where he got.
So sad.
Yeah. So, latest example, he got caught lying about British Prime Minister David Cameron. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, Mr. David Cameron, confided in him that he was concerned about the direction of America's leadership.
Oh, boy.
But there's a problem with the Republicans' tidy critique of President Obama. Cameron didn't remember it that way. Walker, who's taken several trips overseas in recent months to study up on foreign policy in preparation for an all-but-certain presidential bid, told a room full of Republican donors Friday that world leaders, including Cameron, are worried about the U.S. stepping back in the world. The president did not say that and does not think that, a Downing Street spokesperson told Time magazine. This is Walker talking. I heard that from David Cameron back in February earlier when we were over at 10 Downing. I heard it from other leaders around the world. They're looking around and realizing this leading from behind mentality just not working. So he's just flat out lying and got busted in it pretty directly. Okay, here's some good news. Is about to make history. Aviation history is in the making. No fossil fuel. Solar revolutionary airplane powered exclusively by sun about to depart on the longest leg of its around-the-world journey. The 4,000-mile flight from Japan to Hawaii will kick off as soon as weather permits because the aircraft's maximum speed is only 90 miles an hour and typically flies even energy. The nonstop journey is predicted to take 4 or 5 days. It will stay in the air for 4 or 5 days, which is fascinating as a piece of technology in and of itself. Fly very fast, but it can stay in the air for a very long time, powered by sunlight, which means as a transportation plane, it may not have much value, but it will have it for all kinds of other monitoring, weather, other stuff. It can't carry military stuff because it'll fall out of the sky. So it's kind of good that way. Liquid body armor is soon. There's this. Scientists in Poland are working on a body armor technology that will also be great in motorcycle helmets and other high-impact clothing for extreme sports and that kind of stuff. It hardens upon impact and in such a way slowly... Yeah, well...
Just saying.
It's not that kind of happy ending, John. I'm just saying. But good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do we have a round of applause sound effect? We should throw that in there somewhere. There you go. For John. But anyway, so that like both motorcycle riding gear, police safety uniforms, military safety uniforms, all that stuff, much lighter, easier to carry, safer in the long term. That's ultimately a good thing. And no comment on the fact that it's Polish scientists. I got a couple from Shane and Danielle. They walk these into this. One is, this is from UPI.com. Cambridge University moves towards hiring Lego professor to study play. Cambridge, England, Britain's prestigious Cambridge University announced a proposal plan to hire a Lego professor to study education with a grant from the Lego Foundation. The school's general board revealed the Lego Foundation, which aims to promote learning, has offered Cambridge University a $3.9 million grant to fund a Lego professorship of play and education development and learning at the school. The foundation also offered the school a $2.3 million grant for a research center for play and education development and learning, to which Lego professor will be appointed. No word whether or not everyone will have to sing "Everything is Awesome" when he walks into class. If the students will go, "He is coming. Hold on to your butt." Hold on to your what? Mexico's Supreme Court opens door to gay marriage nationwide. Mexico's Supreme Court has ruled it is unconstitutional for Mexican states to bar same-sex marriages. But the court's ruling is considered a thesis and does not invalidate any state laws, meaning gay couples denied the right to wed would have to turn to the courts individually. Given the ruling, judges and courts would have to approve same-sex. Ruled that any state law which considers the ultimate purpose of marriage to be procreation or defines marriage as celebrated between a man and woman is unconstitutional. So they're ahead of us. Angle. Do you guys have one? Because I'm kind of on a roll.
Daddy has one. I came in happening free today.
Oh, all right.
I'm glad you're here, man.
Yeah, it's a that Johnny's here. Can I say that for the honestly? Yeah.
Aside, but no. So on Wednesday I took a Lyft because I kept missing the dang bus. I take public transportation to get here, but and I got a Lyft, and a guy asked me what I did for a living, and I said I worked at a radio station. I said WCPT. And for the first time, he not only did he know of it, he loved it, and he knew of the show and everything.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Another friend of mine said, my dad said that he heard you on the progressive station that he listens to. I heard your pal Johnny.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. This he listened so much, he was like, "Oh, you guys were having phone issues last week, right?" And I'm like, "Oh,
great. Yeah. That's what he hears."
Yeah.
Did you tell him it was your fault? No. Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks.
Whatever,
yeah, our host is always in a different city to get him hooked up. He's got some weird gearbox problem. Well, that is awesome. See, our reach is exceeding our grasp, and that's the goal I've had for this show since the very beginning. Okay, here's another happy. This is so fascinating to me. Nobody fixed these potholes until the potholes asked themselves. Agency P4 Ogilvy and Mather equipped a number of cast iron plates with them in potholes around the city, then crafted colorful tweets to publish each time a car drives over the device. El hueco tuitero. So they tweeted in Spanish. The tweet included a shout out to Panama City's Department of Public Works, putting each pothole on the radar of municipal workers. In addition, a website, elhuecotuitero.com, maps the location of the tweeting. They said things like, one hole to rule them all, one hole to bring them all in, and in the darkness bind them.
I don't know what to say to that.
I love it. I'm sure it's even more sexually confusing in Spanish. Meanwhile, local TV station Telemetro has kept attention on the government's response and progress. They're finding a way to deal with the potholes. They throw these little devices into them, little kind of disposable things, and whenever a car runs over it, it goes, "Hey, by the way, this pothole's still here." So great, and hopefully coming to the States sometime soon. It's a Spanish organization that's doing. I just think it's wicked, and that's one of the ways that like technology is helping everybody. I like a pothole sometimes. It just out random tweets like I think a car just ran over Hal. Maybe.
Oh.
Really poetic.
All of a sudden.
Yeah.
We don't know what to do with this extra time.
It's great, though.
We're so used to panicking at the end of the show. It's weird.
Yeah, running out of time racing for the end of it. But I think, the reality actually, as the show behind, we can actually reach out and have people, and it flows. Today we actually had breaking news. First time is great. Yeah. I think we need to move to D.C. I think I need to do it out of here every week because these guys need to come in here. Shane and Danielle, thank you so much for having me. Hartman for hosting me by allowing me to take over his space. And thanks, Charlene, for opening for me and being on the road and being a kind of great ride-along. Thank you. It's always great when you're here. And Dennis, you work so hard and you're so awesome. We need to get you a car. Mm-hmm. I like that you get compliments in public trans, but this is enough. And I'm Hal Sparks. We'll see you next week on the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Happy Pride Weekend.